Hello and welcome to another video, and today I'm going to talk about how I went from this to this to this to this and now to this. I'm also going to talk about this, touch on this, and probably just avoid this. So if you are excited for me to dig out some super old clips from the archives and establish once and for all how big a human can get without steroids, then give this video a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and let's go. Okay, we're in. So the plan today, as the title suggests, is to discuss how big someone can get without drugs, right? What is the natural limit? Now I'm going to use myself as an example because myself is me, and it makes sense because I know more about myself than anyone else. And yeah, I want to try and figure out how close I am to the natural limit, how close I am to hitting my genetic potential, or whether I'm already there. Now before I start, just so we're clear, when I'm talking about natural limit, I'm talking about the natural limit in terms of muscle growth, okay? So basically how much muscle a human body can attain without taking drugs. Now in order to look at me and to establish how close I am to my natural limit, we need to talk about my training background and my training history. So let's take it right back to when I was a wheezy little goon at secondary school. Now I always played a lot of sport at school, like my whole life, like since I can remember. I was like kicking a football around, out on a bike, like doing whatever. Now when I was at school, football was my sport. I was a really big footballer. I love football, and up until the age of I guess like 15, up until about year 10, 11, I was always in the school football team. Like I played at quite a high level. I played for the county for 2 years. When I got to like year 10, year 11, sixth form kind of time, I just found I was accumulating loads of injuries, like loads of stupid little niggly injuries, like stuff with my knee and my ankles and my back and stuff, and it just got really annoying. Plus I didn't like the fact that like with a team sport, like you can have a great game, like I might have a brilliant game, but the team can still lose, and I found that quite frustrating. So basically at that time I also started to get a little bit into athletics. That started to go really well, and so I decided to sack off football and concentrate on athletics. Now I specialised in the long jump and the triple jump, and it kind of went from there. It got better and better and better, and I ended up doing that for like 10 years, so basically the vast majority of my life. Now athletics was friggin' awesome. Like I'll definitely recommend like people doing it, although there's not much money in it. In terms of what you learn from it and how you develop as a person, I think it's an amazing sport. Like, I covered so many different types of training and learned so much about my body that is invaluable. Now I ended up getting again to a pretty high level in athletics. I competed internationally. I jumped for England in the triple jump, and things were looking really good, but unfortunately I prolapsed a disc in my lumbar spine, and so I had to retire. Now after bumming around on my sofa for a few months and feeling sorry for myself, I started to do some rehab. Now I was going to the gym to rehab, and I started doing super light squats and super light deadlifts as part of that process. And what I found is that my back felt really good. It felt better than ever. I started to get stronger. I started to get kind of like obsessed with the numbers and trying to get bigger and better, and it kind of went from there. And so after starting to incorporate some bench press, I basically became a powerlifter. And fast forward 4 years, I got to a point where I could squat 265 kilograms, bench press 180 kilograms, and deadlift 310 kilograms, which is pretty freaking cool, right? But a few months ago I kind of fell out of love with it. I kind of stopped liking it and started almost dreading training. Like it just got too much. Like having to squat and deadlift heavy 3 or 4 times a week wasn't enjoyable anymore, and so I decided to make the switch to bodybuilding, and that takes us up to the present day to where I am now. Whew, that was a pretty friggin' comprehensive history. Anyway, the reason I told you that is that although I've only been lifting weights specifically for the last 4 years, which is probably why some people have been accusing me of taking steroids, my training age is actually bigger than that. It's kind of a little bit misleading because although, like I said, I've only been in the gym and like trying to get bigger and stronger for those 4 years, before that I was still lifting weights. Like when I was an athlete, when I was doing athletics, particularly for the last few years, I was doing like squats, I was doing like cleans, like jerks and stuff. I was doing bench press. Now it was never heavy, it was always more kind of power orientated, so it would be a lot lighter and a lot more explosive with some plyometric and stuff added in, but I was still doing those exercises. So in terms of like my legs in particular, my quads, I've done squats for a long time, I've done lots of sprinting, lots of plyometrics, and so my training age in that respect is definitely a lot more than 4 years. And like even my upper body, like although I wasn't trying to get bigger, although I was never doing any hypertrophy, I was still doing loads of things like press ups and dips in like various circuits and stuff, so I was still exposed to that kind of training at that point. Now the reason that's relevant is that your training age is really important in establishing where your natural limit is, where your genetic potential is. So for example, if you've been training hard and consistently for like 10-15 years, the chances are you're probably at or around your genetic limit. But if you've only been training for a couple of years, the chances are you've got a lot more to come. And so going back to myself, although like I said, I've only been training specifically in the gym for about 4 years, I was doing some gym work before that, and so I'm probably a lot closer to my natural limit than it would appear. Right, that is a lot of chat. Now what I thought I would do is that I have to train today, so I thought rather than just give you one massive chunk of information, I would break out with some training. Right, so I've got to go and do a push work. workout. It's going to be a shoulder focused push workout, and I thought if I filmed it, you could watch the session and then you can make your own mind up as far as how close I am to my natural limit, or whether you think I'm actually there already, or maybe you think I'm a skinny weasel and I'm nowhere near it. See you at the gym. Right, I'm here, and before I start, I'll give you a quick insight into my current training setup. So, I run a 5-day split, which is basically like push-pull legs. So I have 2 push days, 2 pull days, and 1 legs day. Now my push days are divided into like a chest-focused push day and a shoulder-focused push day. And today is the shoulder-focused one, so I'll be doing the vast majority of my work on shoulders, then a little bit of chest and a little bit of triceps. Training is done, felt pretty good, and I thought rather than finish our chat in like a gym car park, I'd take you somewhere a little bit more scenic. Much better. Right, I'm just going to put you on a stake thing, a wooden thing, because I'm not going to friggin' stand there like a goon holding it the whole time we're talking. Plus, there is, by the way, a castle over there, so just saying. Okay, game on. So before I trained, I was talking about my training history and the links to my natural limit. Now I want to kind of talk about the natural genetic limit, like in a general sense, basically to help you, so you can try and establish where your natural limit is and maybe how close you are to that point. Now the first thing to say is, like, obviously your natural and your genetic limits are going to be different, right? Your natural limit is how big, how much muscle you can grow naturally, whereas your genetic limit is going to be how much muscle you can grow with assistance, right? So drugs. So your natural limit is going to be different, right? Everyone's is going to be different. Now look at it in this way, like if you think about like if you ever played like Championship Manager when you were younger, right? I used to play that all the friggin' time. Everyone had your attributes, right? Now, I found a way, like, it was like a patch where you could go on like the Championship Manager editor and you could like edit. You could basically cheat and make your players way better. But what you could see there is like their current stats and then their potential attributes. So someone's speed was currently like 70 and their potential, the fastest they could ever get, was going to be speed 90, right? Now your natural limit is going to be the same. Like some people are naturally going to be able to get bigger than you, and you're going to naturally be able to get bigger than some other people. So if you look at it in like a Championship Manager sense, your current chest size might be like a 70 and your limit could be 80, right? Whereas your friend, who's also at 70, has a limit of 90. That means if you both train the same way for a long period of time, he's eventually going to have a bigger chest than you. And it kind of sucks, but that's just the way it is. Now, what's also important to remember, and I just kind of touched on it there, is that although you may have like a genetic or a natural limit, it doesn't mean you're necessarily going to realize that. Like, in order to realize your true natural limit, you've got to execute every single facet of muscle growth perfectly. So you've got to eat right, you've got to train right, you've got to sleep right, you've got to do this for a long enough period of time to get as big as you possibly can. And realistically, unless you're a monk, that's not going to happen. Like, you might be born with the genetics to be an absolute freak, to be a frigging god, but if you don't start training until you're 50, or if you eat absolute crap, or you get 2 hours sleep a night, you're never going to realize that true natural potential. Now, if I turn this back to me, back to myself, so I apply those kind of things to me, although I think I do have pretty decent genetics, there are quite a few things that aren't going in my favor. So the first thing is that I'm 32, right? So I'm getting on age-wise. Secondly, if you add up all the time in my life I've been training specifically for hypertrophy, probably only looking at like a max of 2 years, so like a few months at the moment, and then a few months dotted out over the last, say, 10 years of my life. Now, obviously, although I am planning to bodybuild for the foreseeable future, I obviously have not maximized the last 10 years of my life in terms of hypertrophy. Plus, like my diet, if you go back and watch my videos, although I've been bulking quite a lot of the time, in terms of the content of my diet, it's not always great. So in that sense, again, you can't say I've maximized my potential natural limit. But I guess it depends how you look at it, like whether you're an optimist or a pessimist, the whole kind of glass half full or glass half empty thing. Like on the one hand, you could say, well, I've got so much more to come, so I can get so much bigger and so much better. Or on the other hand, you can say, well, you've wasted the last 10 years, so you're never going to get to your true limit. And I think, to be honest, the truth will probably be a bit clearer in maybe a year or so. I think in a year or so, I'll have been doing hypertrophy specifically for like a good year and 1.5, and then at that point I'll know, like, you know, where my limit is and whether I'm already there. I mean, the truth is, I think I'm probably not a million miles away. Like, a good indication of this is how much progress you're making in the gym. If you're getting stronger and bigger very quickly, then you can imagine you've got quite a long way to go. You're probably at the beginning of your journey, whereas if it's starting to slow down like it is for me, then you can imagine you're probably getting closer to that genetic limit. Now again, although I've only been doing hypertrophy for a short period of time, I have touched on it like in previous years, not for long periods of time, but you think, like I said earlier, I was sprinting and jumping and doing like Olympic lifts for a while, so all of those things are going to contribute towards hypertrophy. And so I don't think there's that much more mass I can put on. I think realistically, staying as a natural athlete, in a year's time I'll probably be a bit bigger and look a bit better, but it's not going to be a crazy change. Now before I finish, I want to go back to a more kind of general sentence again, open it up to everyone. So basically, how big can a human get without steroids? And although it's probably not the answer you want to hear, the truth is no one knows. There is no way you can categorically set a limit and say this is how big a human can get. No one can do that. Like, if you look at athletics, for example, if you said 100 years ago someone's going to run 100 meters in sub 10 seconds, you said there's no freaking way you're going to do that, like, unless you're an alien. But it's happened. People are doing it consistently. Although a lot of those guys are on drugs, there are also a lot of natural athletes who are doing that. So the point is, we don't know. We don't know the genetic potential of humans. We can estimate it, we can have a pretty educated guess, but we don't know for sure. And I think part of the problem is that a lot of the genetic freaks, a lot of the guys that were kind of set that endpoint to give us a good idea, have gone on to drugs. So like the guys who are naturally huge, the guys that have crazy genetics, that have amazing potential to build muscle, what they do is they get pretty big, they get into bodybuilding, and they end up taking steroids to become like a pro bodybuilder. And so we're never going to see their true natural limit because they've already gone past that point. So talking about guys like Kai Green and Phil Heath, even though obviously you suspect they're on drugs now, if they were clean, they'd still be freaking huge, bigger than like every other person in the world. And then you'd be able to say, yeah, look at that guy, that's like probably a genetic limit for a natural athlete. But again, we can't do that now because they've already kind of ruined that. They've already gone beyond that point by taking drugs. Now I could give you some examples of some natural guys, some guys who are freaking huge who aren't on steroids, but because of how skeptical people are and because of the nature of the internet, everyone's going to say they're on drugs anyway, so that would be a waste of time. It would prove nothing. But what I can do is show you some examples of guys who definitely are clean, guys who I can prove for a fact are categorically not on drugs or weren't on drugs because they were around before that time. So basically, steroids as we know them today weren't really invented until like 1935 or so, I believe, and they weren't really available until like the late 40s, early 50s. So what I've done here is got some examples of some guys who were around before that time who were bodybuilders, so we know for a fact they're definitely clean, and you can see some of them are freaking huge, right? And if these guys were around today with better lighting and better equipment and better diet and better knowledge, they'd be even bigger, and people will be screaming they're not natural, but we know they are. And so yeah, that gives you a little bit of an indication as to what a human can achieve naturally, what is a genetic limit for a natural athlete. But the truth is, we're never going to know for sure, and like I said, because people are so skeptical, it's only going to get harder and harder to prove that. But I've gone on for long enough, the post-training adrenaline has worn off and I'm now freaking freezing, plus I'm in a vest in a field, which is pretty weird, so I'm going to go and get some food and end the video now. So I sincerely hope you enjoyed it, guys. If you have enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up, like I said, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I will see you tomorrow.